Imagine the vast, endless Pacific Ocean during the height of World War II, a colossal battlefield where the fate of nations and empires was decided not by towering battleships alone, but by the power projected from the skies above. It was here, amid the roaring waves and endless horizon, that the Essex-class aircraft carriers emerged as the thunderous giants of naval warfare, vast floating airfields that redefined what it meant to command the seas. For Japanese admirals, these monstrous warships were no ordinary fleets. They were living, breathing fortresses bristling with lethal air power, capable of unleashing a barrage of aircraft that seemed infinite and unstoppable. When the Japanese naval commanders first caught sight of the Essex carriers slicing through the Pacific waters, an immediate sense of shock and disbelief swept over them. Unlike the carriers of the early war years, these were vessels built without the constraints of outdated naval treaties, engineered to carry larger air groups with an unprecedented volume of firepower. The USS Essex itself stretched over 870 feet long, with a beam of 147 feet, and displaced more than 27,000 tons. Massive hulks with enormous flight decks, fortified with state-of-the-art anti-aircraft defenses, resilient armor, and the latest radar and communication technology. The Japanese admiral's surprise was not just due to size or technology, but the operational tempo the Essex carriers could maintain. Traditional naval doctrine emphasized the power of a single decisive strike, an overwhelming blow aimed to cripple enemy forces quickly. But the Essex-class carriers shattered this notion. Their aircraft could be launched in waves as frequent as every 6 minutes, a relentless, unending flood of fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes that would swarm enemy ships and land targets with terrifying precision and persistence. These were air assaults not just of quantity, but quality. Highly trained pilots supported by superior radar and communications, able to coordinate attacks over vast distances and maintain pressure around the clock. The psychological impact on Japanese commanders was profound. Their radar screens flickered with new and continuous threats. Their fleets faced an enemy that never rested, constantly bombarding their defenses and striking at critical points with surgical efficiency. Japanese cruisers and battleships, once regarded as titans of the deep, found themselves vulnerable to aerial torpedoes and bombs launched from these floating airfields. As waves of American aircraft hit again and again, Japanese admirals realized they were fighting not just against ships, but a new kind of warfare, one based on air. Superiority projected relentlessly from the sea. These Essex-class carriers were marvels of American industrial might, packed with innovations. Beyond their formidable dimensions, up to 88 feet in length for later variants, and capacity to carry from 90 to 100 aircraft, these ships housed powerful engines capable of pushing them to speeds of over 33 knots, making them swift and elusive targets. Their armament was equally impressive, boasting an array of anti-aircraft guns including multiple 5-inch 38 caliber dual-purpose guns, Bofors 40mm cannons, and Oerlikon 20mm cannons designed to defend the carriers from incoming aerial assaults, as well as proximity-fused shells that detonated close to enemy planes. Moreover, the Essex-class vessels were fitted with cutting-edge radar and communication systems that allowed them to detect incoming enemies well in advance. These systems provided critical early warnings, synchronized anti-aircraft gunfire, and enabled coordinated multi-carrier task force operations even in adverse weather or nighttime conditions. The integration of identification, friend or foe IFF technology, and advanced navigation tools gave the American fleets a decisive edge, allowing them to track, identify, and engage hostile forces swiftly. For Japanese naval strategists, the Essex carriers represented a grim evolution, a symbol of the relentless industrial and technological capacity of the United States. Unlike the slower, methodical battle tactics favored by Japanese doctrine, the rapid sortie rate from these carriers demanded constant vigilance and adaptation. Japanese forces were forced to scramble fighter escorts multiple times a day, expending precious pilot lives and aircraft. Despite their valiant efforts, the Japanese air forces could rarely match the sheer numbers and sustained pressure of the Essex strike groups. The unyielding presence of the Essex carriers also reshaped the logistics and battlefield dynamics of the Pacific campaign. The ability of these carriers to serve as mobile air bases meant that U.S. naval forces could project power deep into Japanese-held territories and beyond, supporting amphibious assaults, intercepting supply lines, and weakening enemy defenses long before surface fleets could engage. Every sortie launched from the Essex decks contributed to the gradual erosion of Japan's maritime strength and territorial control. Behind the scenes, deck crews and support personnel on the Essex bolstered their floating fortress with incredible efficiency. Planes were fueled, armed, repaired, and catapulted skyward at a pace that defied human limits, their every movement choreographed to maximize output and minimize downtime. This relentless cycle of launch, recovery, and redeployment not only wore down Japanese defenses, but also demoralized enemy sailors and aviators, who faced wave after wave of fresh American planes. Throughout the Pacific War, Japanese admirals would recount their encounters with these floating airfields in tones ranging from grudging respect to despair. Some suspected that they faced a superweapon, a terrifying synthesis of steel, sky, and endless American resolve. The Essex-class carriers thus became more than mere warships. They were icons of a new naval doctrine that prioritized air dominance, speed, and overwhelming force. As dusk falls over the Pacific and the waves lap quietly against these massive carriers, the distant echoes of their aircraft scream remind us of their power and legacy. These floating airfields not only ensured Allied victory in the Pacific, but also heralded the dawn of modern naval warfare, where control of the skies was synonymous with control of the seas. For the Japanese admirals who witnessed their terrifying might, it was a stark revelation. The future belonged to the Essex carriers, and with them, a new era of endless aerial assault from the ocean's vast surface. The story of the Essex-class carriers is a testament to innovation, endurance, and the unbreakable spirit of those who served on them. Their relentless air operations shattered traditional doctrines, reshaped battle tactics, and etched an unforgettable chapter in the history of warfare. As the world continues to look back on these titans of the seas, their legacy remains a powerful reminder of how technology and tenacity combined to change the course of history forever. The story of the USS Essex CV-9 is a tale of unyielding power and tactical brilliance, where steel met sky and indomitable will pushed the boundaries of naval warfare. As the lead ship of the Essex-class carriers, she entered the Pacific theater in May 1943, marking the arrival of a new era in the war. From that moment, she became a relentless force, her decks a hive of ceaseless activity as her aircraft struck enemy positions with precision and ferocity that stunned Japanese forces. The Essex's first combat operations began with attacks on strategic enemy islands, Marcus Island, Wake Island, the Gilbert Islands, Kwajalein, and the Marshall Islands between August 1943 and February 1944. These assaults were not isolated strikes, but waves of carefully coordinated sorties targeting Japanese airfields, naval installations, and supply depots. Each mission was designed to weaken Japan's grip on the Pacific, shifting the balance of power progressively toward the Allied forces. Japanese admirals watched in disbelief as these floating airfields pummeled their defensive perimeters with increasing intensity and scale. The U.S. Navy's ability to strike multiple targets across vast distances showcased the strategic advantage the Essex carriers provided, a mobile platform capable of delivering sustained aerial bombardment far beyond the reach of traditional naval artillery or isolated air bases. The precision and tempo of these attacks forced the Japanese to disperse their forces thinly across many fronts, diluting their defensive strength. One of the most remarkable campaigns involving the USS Essex was the series of assaults on the Mariana Islands in mid-1944. These islands were critical to Japan's defensive perimeter, serving as vital bases for its naval and air power. Essex-based aircraft were instrumental in the battles for Saipan, Tinian, and Guam, delivering crippling blows to enemy airfields and fleet units. The intensifying air campaign significantly degraded Japanese combat capabilities, paving the way for successful amphibious landings and the eventual liberation of these strategic locations. During the fall of 1944, the Essex took part in the Battle of Leyte Gulf, one of the largest naval battles in history. It was here that the Essex and her group faced the fury of kamikaze attacks, suicide strikes where Japanese pilots deliberately crashed their planes into Allied ships with devastating effect. On November 25, 1944, the Essex was struck by a kamikaze on her portside flight deck. Though the attack caused casualties, 15 sailors killed and 44 injured, the ship survived. Her resilience and rapid damage control illustrated the robustness and preparedness built into Essex-class carriers, ensuring they endured even under the harshest conditions. The struggle did not end there. The Essex continued to participate in key Pacific campaigns, such as the battles over Okinawa, Iwo Jima, the Palau Islands, and Formosa, modern-day Taiwan. Throughout these operations, the carrier and her air wing played an indispensable role, softening enemy defenses, disrupting supply routes, and providing critical air cover for ground forces advancing toward Japanese-held territories. With every sortie, the Essex projected American air dominance further into enemy waters, enforcing an irresistible pressure that eroded Japanese resistance. The daily operations aboard the Essex were a spectacle of endurance and precision. Flight decks buzzed day and night, with the roar of aircraft engines, the clang of catapults, and the focused routines of crews servicing planes under tight deadlines. Pilots faced not just combat dangers, but the difficulty of landing on a pitching, moving deck in the midst of battle, a feat requiring nerves of steel and exceptional skill. This human element, the courage, skill, and coordination of thousands, made the Essex more than a mere machine. She was a living war engine driven by relentless dedication. Japanese defensive strategies struggled to keep up. Their air forces were stretched thin, trying desperately to counter the persistent strikes launched from the Essex and her sister ships. Radar stations, anti-aircraft emplacements, and fighter squadrons attempted to disrupt these sorties, but the sheer volume and speed of American air attacks often overwhelmed them. The repeated air assaults forced the Japanese to expend precious resources on repairing damaged bases and rebuilding air units, a cycle that further strained their already stretched war economy. The Essex also endured nature's wrath. Surviving multiple typhoons, the ship's sturdy design and the skill of her crew ensured she could weather the ocean's fury while continuing her mission. These storms tested the limits of her engineering and the resilience of those aboard, reinforcing the Essex's reputation not only as a powerful weapon, but as a bastion of toughness and resolve. Beyond combat operations, the Essex served as a symbol of hope and determination for Allied forces. She was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation and earned 13 battle stars, recognition of her extraordinary service and the valor of her crew. Her story continued beyond World War II, as she was modernized and played vital roles in the Korean War, supporting United Nations forces and engaging in further operations until her final decommissioning. The tale of the Essex's relentless strikes is a profound chapter in naval history, one that echoes with the roar of her aircraft and the stories of those who served aboard her. It is a testament to human ingenuity, bravery, and the unbreakable spirit of a nation determined to prevail. Through storm and fire, the Essex-class carriers reshaped warfare, turning the tide of the Pacific and leaving a legacy that endures in the annals of history. As the sun dips below the horizon, fading echoes of battle mingle with the ocean breeze, carrying whispers of valor and sacrifice across the deep blue. The Essex and her sister ships remain immortalized as giants of the sea, floating airfields that brought overwhelming power and relentless determination to the fight, forever changing the course of war and inspiring generations to come. The USS Essex, CV-9, a symbol of American naval dominance during World War II, faced not a quiet retirement, but a remarkable transformation that extended her power far beyond the Pacific battles. After the guns fell silent in 1945, she was decommissioned briefly, but the story of the Essex was far from over. In the cold dawn of the 1950s, the Essex awakened from her wartime service to forge a new path, embodying the adaptability and resilience of a ship born to dominate in evolving eras of conflict. Recommissioned in 1951, the Essex underwent extensive modernization to meet the demands of modern warfare. This refit included the installation of a new flight deck, designed to accommodate emerging jet aircraft with their greater speeds and heavier weights, and a streamlined island superstructure to improve visibility and command efficiency. The evolution from propeller-driven planes to jets demanded changes not only in technology but in the tactics and operations that the Essex would support in the years to come. Her new role was not limited to offensive air power, but extended deeply into anti-submarine warfare (ASW), reflecting the shifting priorities of the Cold War era. Submarine threats, particularly from Soviet forces, called for vigilance beneath the waves, and the Essex became a frontline anti-submarine carrier, equipped with specialized aircraft and sonar technology designed to detect and counter the stealthy menace lurking beneath the surface. This conversion marked the Essex's transition from purely a strike carrier, CVA, to an anti-submarine carrier, CVS, transforming her mission to safeguard American naval supremacy in a complex new strategic environment. The Korean War offered the Essex a new theater to demonstrate her versatility and resolve. Returning to combat operations, the carrier supported United Nations forces by launching airstrikes, providing close air support, and serving as a mobile bastion in contested waters. The transition from World War II propeller-driven aircraft to jets such as the F-2H Banshee intensified the tempo and complexity of flight operations, necessitating a crew of exceptional skill and coordination. The Essex became a vital instrument in Korea, proving that despite advancing technology and changing geopolitical landscapes, her power and influence endured. Her operational reach expanded globally. The Essex sailed extensively in both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, and even into the Mediterranean Sea as part of NATO exercises, asserting American maritime strength during a period characterized by tension and uncertainty. In 1959, she joined NATO naval forces for the first time, symbolizing the unity of Western powers against emerging Cold War threats. Her presence in these waters underscored the strategic importance of aircraft carriers in demonstrating political will while strengthening alliances. Beyond warfare, the Essex played a clandestine role during some of the most perilous moments of the Cold War. She was a sentinel during the Cuban Missile Crisis, reflecting the tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union that threatened global annihilation. Though her guns were never fired, her very presence off the coast of Cuba sent a powerful message of deterrence and readiness. The Essex represented a vital component of American naval diplomacy, projecting strength without firing a shot, but holding the balance of power in careful, vigilant hands. Her service extended to rescue and humanitarian missions as well. The Essex participated in salvage operations off the New Jersey coast and played a key role in the recovery of the Apollo 7 space mission crew, a symbol of American ingenuity and the peaceful applications of aerospace technology. These missions highlighted the carrier's adaptability, capable not only of war, but of life-saving and scientific support, broadening her legacy beyond the battlefield. The ship's latter years were marked by continued innovation and activity. Converted to an ASW support carrier in 1960, the Essex served as the flagship of Carrier Division 18 and Anti-Submarine Carrier Group 3. Norway, France and various NATO allies witnessed her power as she took part in naval exercises designed to counter the expanding submarine threat posed by the Soviet Union. The Essex's deployment demonstrated how aircraft carriers evolved into versatile platforms able to respond to diverse challenges, a far cry from the pure strike roles they held during World War II. Throughout her post-war career, the Essex and her crew personified resilience and adaptability. Recognition came in the form of multiple battle stars, earned not only in World War II, but also during the Korean War, alongside numerous commendations, acknowledging her critical role in maintaining peace and readiness during volatile times. The ship's legacy became a beacon to generations of sailors and aviators who served aboard her decks, carrying forward the tradition of excellence forged in the fires of global conflict. Finally decommissioned in 1969, after more than 2 decades of multifaceted service, the USS Essex closed the curtain on one of the most remarkable naval careers ever recorded. Sold for scrap in 1973, her physical form disappeared, but the legend of the Essex-class carrier endured. She was more than a ship. She was a symbol of American innovation, endurance, and the ceaseless pursuit of maritime superiority. Through war and peace, missile crises and rescue missions, the Essex adapted and persevered, her story echoing through naval history as an eternal testament to an era when floating airfields ruled the waves. The journey of the USS Essex illustrates not only technological evolution, but the human spirit that animated her decks. From the thunderous biplanes and prop fighters of World War II to the sleek jets and anti-submarine patrols of the Cold War, the Essex metamorphosed to meet every challenge. Her decks witnessed heroism, tragedy, and groundbreaking achievements, the lifeblood of America's Navy and its determination to shape history on its own terms. The USS Essex, CV-9, having stormed through the skies of World War II and adapted her steel might during the Cold War, approached the twilight of her illustrious career with a legacy that few warships in history could match. This chapter is a tribute to her final years, marked by endurance, transformation, and service in an increasingly complex and tense world. The Essex stood as a potent symbol of American naval power, her decks having launched thousands of missions, housed countless sailors and aviators, and embodied generations of tactical evolution before her final decommissioning. Post-World War II, the Essex returned to a brief peacetime calm, but was soon called back into action with the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950. After being modernized and recommissioned in 1951, she was retrofitted to handle the dawn of jet aviation and new anti-submarine warfare, ASW technologies. This transition from a conventional attack carrier into an ASW carrier reflected the rapidly shifting demands of the Cold War, focusing on countering the Soviet submarine threat that lurked beneath the oceans. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, the USS Essex operated extensively across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, partaking in NATO exercises and enforcing American naval influence globally. Her capabilities expanded beyond pure strike missions to include reconnaissance, search and rescue, and defense operations. She became an integral part of the naval quarantine during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a tense, defining moment of Cold War brinkmanship where her presence helped avert a nuclear confrontation with the Soviet Union. Her versatility also extended beyond combat missions. In 1968, the Essex was chosen as the prime recovery vessel for the Apollo 7 space mission, underscoring her role in supporting America's burgeoning space program and symbolizing the carrier's evolution from wartime instrument to peacetime technological sentinel. The crew's precision and dedication in this non-combat mission reflected the ethos of a ship built for every challenge, at war or peace. Despite her formidable service record and technological upgrades, the era of the Essex-class carriers was coming to an end. The advent of supercarriers and new naval warfare doctrines meant that older ships like the Essex were gradually replaced. The increasing costs necessary to maintain and retrofit them, coupled with a shift towards nuclear-powered vessels and guided missile technology, made her less strategic for modern naval deployment. Yet Essex's importance during these transitions was undeniable. On June 30, 1969, after nearly 27 years of service, the USS Essex was decommissioned for the final time at the Boston Navy Yard. Her striking from the Naval Vessel Register in 1973 marked the official closing of a chapter in American naval history. Sold for scrap in 1975, many mourned the loss of such a legendary vessel. Preservation efforts faltered, but the Essex's legacy lived on in the ships she inspired and the veterans who served aboard her. The USS Essex left behind an unparalleled record: 13 battle stars for World War II, 4 for the Korean War, a Presidential Unit Citation, and the Navy Unit Commendation. Her story is not merely about the battles fought or the technologies employed, but about the people who endured endless challenges on her decks, the pilots who braved enemy fire and storms, the crews who repaired damage under fire, and the leadership that guided her through changing tides in global conflict. Her influence extended beyond military history, shaping naval aviation and carrier design for decades. The Essex class inspired naval architects and tacticians, laying the groundwork for the supercarriers that would define the latter 20th century. She stood as a testament to American industrial might and adaptability, demonstrating how innovation could meet the demands of ever-changing warfare. Her final decommissioning was a somber event, attended by men and women who understood the weight of history held within her bulkheads. Stories flowed freely of daring raids on Pacific islands, the terrifying kamikaze attacks she survived, the countless sorties flown from her decks, and the camaraderie that defined life aboard a ship on the cutting edge of technology and combat. In the broader scope of naval warfare, the Essex-class carriers were the embodiment of a transformational era. They bridged the gap between battleship dominance and air superiority, proving that control of the skies was paramount to controlling the seas. Essex, as the lead ship of this class, carried this truth not only into battle but into the hearts and minds of those who witnessed her power. As the sun set on the era of the Essex, her imprint on history remained indelible. She may have been dismantled and recycled, her steel repurposed, but what she represented, the courage, innovation, and unrelenting spirit of American naval power, still resonates with profound strength. The floating airfields that once shocked Japanese admirals have ceded to newer generations, but the legend of the USS Essex endures, a beacon of a bygone age when a metal giant ruled the ocean skies. This final chapter invites reflection on the journey of an extraordinary vessel, a floating city of war and peace, whose echo in history continues to inspire awe. The Essex's story is a tribute not just to a ship, but to a nation's resolve, technological pioneering, and the relentless pursuit of victory on the vast and unforgiving ocean. The USS Essex, CV-9, was launched at a moment when the world was engulfed in total war. A floating fortress, born to secure an overwhelming American victory in the vast Pacific Ocean. From her commissioning at the very end of 1942 to her decommissioning more than 2 decades later, Essex was the embodiment of innovation, resilience, and the relentless projection of air power. Her story is a lighthouse illuminating the evolution of naval warfare, a saga of steel, courage, and strategy that reshaped history forever. Her journey into combat began swiftly after a rigorous shakedown cruise. May 1943 saw the Essex steaming towards the Pacific, where she would join the struggle for control over the Pacific Islands. Tasked as flagship of Task Force 14 by August, Essex quickly became a spearhead of offensive operations. Her first significant combat came in October 1943, when her aircraft carriers struck Wake Island, signaling that American naval air power was unstoppable and expanding rapidly across the Pacific battlefield. As the war progressed into 1943 and early 1944, the Essex participated in landmark operations that would cripple Japan's defensive perimeter. Targets like Marcus Island, the Gilbert Islands, the Marshall Islands, and Kwajalein felt the impact of her massive air wings. Not merely a carrier for planes, Essex was the nerve center of coordinated assaults in combined amphibious campaigns, such as the pivotal Tarawa landings. Each mission eroded Japanese resistance and seized critical footholds for the Allied advance, magnifying the strategic importance of air supremacy conducted far from continental shores. Perhaps the most momentous actions occurred in early 1944 during the assault on Truk Lagoon, the jewel of the Japanese fleet's strongholds. Essex, as a key component of Task Group 58.2, joined forces with other task groups to orchestrate the largest carrier strike force assembled to date. The surprise attack devastated the Japanese fleet by sinking 8 capital ships, crippling their naval capacity and changing the dynamics of Pacific warfare. The success was a testament to Essex's operational effectiveness and the skill of the men who manned her decks and flew her planes. The carrier's robust defenses and operational excellence were severely tested during prolonged aerial engagements, including fierce attacks aimed at preventing the American task forces from striking the Marianas. Despite intense Japanese resistance, Essex and her task groups pressed on, executing massive strikes against Saipan, Tinian, and Guam later in 1944. These battles strategically cut Japanese supply lines, enabled pivotal amphibious assaults, and set the stage for the eventual invasion of the Japanese home islands. Though her offensive power was formidable, Essex's resilience shone brightest during the kamikaze threat that emerged in late 1944. On November 25th, The carrier suffered a kamikaze hit on her flight deck's portside, resulting in tragic loss of 15 sailors and 44 wounded. However, damage control teams swiftly contained the fires and repaired critical systems, allowing Essex to continue her mission. This unyielding toughness underscored the design brilliance of the Essex class, marrying offensive might with survivability engineered to endure even the deadliest attacks. As 1945 dawned, Essex continued providing critical air support across the Western Pacific. She furnished vital air cover and support during key amphibious operations, including the ferocious battles for Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Essex's air wings relentlessly penetrated Japanese defenses, destroying airfields, disrupting supply routes, and paving the way for Allied ground forces. Her aircraft were the extended arm of the invasion forces, a symbol of American resolve and technological superiority. In the closing months of the war, Essex participated in direct raids against the Japanese home islands between July 10 and August 15, 1945, delivering decisive blows in the final assault on Japan's capacity to wage war. These raids were a grim reminder to Japanese leadership of the futility of continued resistance and showcased the ultimate evolution of the Essex as a floating airfield capable of projecting power into the heart of enemy territory. The carrier's achievements were rewarded with 13 battle stars during World War II, a record highlighting her non-stop service at the war's bloodiest front. Commanded by courageous officers and staffed by sailors and aviators of extraordinary skill, Essex earned the moniker the fightingest ship in the fleet. Her legacy is a profound story of how steel, spirit and strategy converged to alter the trajectory of history. Beyond World War II, Essex's versatility carried on through the Korean War, where she embraced jet aviation and anti-submarine warfare to meet evolving military needs. She earned an additional 4 battle stars in Korea, demonstrating her ongoing strategic value. Essex's transformation from a traditional strike carrier into an anti-submarine warfare platform underlined her adaptability in the changing arenas of global conflict. Her service extended into the Cold War, participating in NATO joint exercises, enforcing maritime embargoes during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and even playing a role in space exploration recovery missions. Such diverse roles not only prolonged her operational life, but showcased the adaptability and importance of aircraft carriers as instruments of power projection. Diplomacy and humanitarian missions. Finally decommissioned in 1969 and sold for scrap in 1975, the Essex ended her physical journey but not her influence. Her pioneering design became a blueprint for the supercarriers that followed, vessels capable of unparalleled air power projection well into the 21st century. Her deeds echoed across generations, forging a legacy that is remembered not just in history books, but in the very fabric of the U.S. Navy. The USS Essex's story is far more than the tale of a warship. It is a narrative of relentless innovation, human courage, and the capacity to overcome overwhelming odds. Her steel may have been dismantled, but her spirit endures, an eternal monument to a time when floating airfields reshaped the world's oceans and the skies above. The USS Essex CV-9 was not merely a warship, it was a revolutionary force that altered the course of naval aviation and modern warfare for generations. As the lead ship of the Essex class, launched amid the chaos of World War II, Essex embodied an evolutionary leap in design, strategy, and capability that set new standards for aircraft carriers worldwide. The legacy she left behind is a testament to innovation, adaptability, and the relentless pursuit of dominance that shaped naval battles in the 20th century and beyond. Essex's introduction marked a pivotal transition for the U.S. Navy. Prior to her class, carriers had been smaller, with limited air groups and operational range. The Essex-class design broke these limitations by producing a larger, faster, and more durable carrier that could carry an unprecedented number of aircraft, up to 108 planes in wartime configuration, with sufficient fuel, ordnance, and support facilities to sustain prolonged air operations at sea. This expanded capacity revolutionized how the U.S. projected air power during World War II, enabling continuous air presence over vast ocean expanses previously impossible. One of the most critical contributions of Essex and her sister ships was in enhancing the launch and recovery cycle of aircraft. The design of an expansive flight deck, augmented by efficient catapult and arresting gear systems, allowed for multiple aircraft to take off and land simultaneously, dramatically increasing sortie rates. This operational efficiency proved decisive in various Pacific engagements, where rapid airstrikes could overwhelm enemy defenses before they could regroup or retaliate. Japanese admirals, accustomed to more restrained air offensives, were confounded by the relentless tempo of these sorties, which Essex carriers maintained throughout long campaigns. During World War II, Essex's air groups played central roles in major battles, including the battles of Philippine Sea and Leyte Gulf. These engagements showcased the devastating effectiveness of carrier-based air power in naval warfare, where the ability to strike from beyond the horizon altered traditional surface ship engagements. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot in June 1944, a nickname for the Battle of Philippine Sea, epitomized this dominance. Essex's aircraft helped decimate hundreds of Japanese planes, crippling their naval air capability and hastening the war's end. The carrier's role in these successes confirmed the aircraft carrier as the preeminent capital ship of modern navies. Essex's influence extended well beyond combat operations. After World War II, the ship was modernized to handle the transition from propeller-driven aircraft to faster jet fighters, integrating new technologies that kept her relevant in the emerging Cold War conflict environment. This adaptability showcased the forward-thinking naval engineering and the necessity for aircraft carriers to evolve with changing military doctrines and technological advances. Her involvement in the Korean War further demonstrated the carrier's importance. Essex provided crucial air support for United Nations forces, executing strikes against enemy positions and supply routes, disrupting communication lines and softening defensive strongholds. Her ability to operate jet aircraft from the sea reaffirmed the strategic value of carriers in rapid response and power projection, shaping naval planning in subsequent conflicts. Essex also significantly influenced aircraft carrier design philosophies. The ship's success catalyzed the U.S. Navy's emphasis on larger, more versatile carriers capable of multi-role missions including anti-submarine warfare, reconnaissance and specialized support tasks beyond fleet air defense and strike missions. This holistic carrier concept underpinned subsequent supercarriers such as the Forrestal and Nimitz classes, giants capable of accommodating the latest aircraft and missile systems that dominate today's seas. Beyond the technical aspects, Essex symbolized American industrial strength and military resolve. Constructed rapidly under wartime conditions, she represented the United States' ability to produce formidable warships at scale without sacrificing quality or innovation. This production capability, coupled with advanced tactical use, shifted naval warfare decisively in favor of the Allies and established a precedent for the massive carrier fleets that would dominate U.S. naval strategy for decades. Moreover, Essex's operations raised the significance of naval aviation in overall military strategy, integrating air, sea, and land operations with unprecedented coordination. The carrier became a floating air base and command center, capable of launching offensive and defensive air operations that supported ground troops, interdicted enemy supplies, and ensured control of vital maritime routes. This integration set the foundation for modern joint military doctrines, where supremacy in the air is crucial to success on land and sea. The Essex-class carriers, led by USS Essex, also set standards in crew training and operational discipline. Handling the complex choreography of hundreds of aircraft operations daily demanded an elite level of workmanship, coordination, and morale. The ship became a crucible for aviators, mechanics, and sailors, forging a culture of excellence that would permeate the Navy's carrier fleet. Her influence persists in training programs and naval traditions even today. Today, the legacy of USS Essex resonates within the U.S. Navy and among naval forces worldwide. Her pioneering role defined what it means to wield sea-based air power, transforming aircraft carriers into strategic assets indispensable for modern military and humanitarian missions. The Essex-class carriers demonstrated that controlling the skies over the oceans equaled controlling the motion of history itself, an enduring lesson for Generations of naval strategists and sailors. Essex's story is ultimately a narrative of transformation, resilience, and the power of innovation. From her steel frameworks to the daring men and women she carried, every aspect contributed to a profound shift in military history, marking a turning point where air superiority from the sea became the cornerstone of naval dominance. The USS Essex endures as a symbol not only of past victories, but as a beacon guiding the future of naval warfare. Thus, in the annals of naval aviation history, the USS Essex stands tall. A ship that changed the game and inspired generations, her echo heard in every carrier that sails forward, projecting power across the open horizons. Following the end of World War II, the USS Essex, CV-9, was decommissioned on January 9, 1947, entering the post-war reserve fleet along with many other wartime vessels. However, the dawn of new global conflicts and geopolitical tensions soon necessitated her return to active duty. With the outbreak of the Korean War, the Essex was modernized and recommissioned on January 16, 1951, to address the evolving demands of naval aviation and warfare. This marked the beginning of her second distinguished chapter, reflecting both the adaptability of her design and the enduring strategic relevance of aircraft carriers. The Essex underwent significant modernization during her reactivation, which included enhancements to her flight deck to accommodate the faster, heavier jet aircraft that were entering naval service. Her island superstructure was streamlined to improve command and control capabilities. Modern radar systems were installed, and her anti-submarine warfare (ASW) capabilities were expanded, reflecting Cold War naval priorities. This modernization transformed her into an attack carrier, CVA, ready to project American naval power in a new age marked by technological advancement and ideological conflict. During the Korean War, Essex played a critical role in supporting United Nations forces, conducting airstrikes against enemy supply lines, strategic installations, and providing close air support to ground troops. Her aircraft launched missions deep into hostile territory, disrupting enemy operations and enhancing battlefield mobility for Allied forces. These deployments showcased the continued importance of carrier air power in limited war scenarios and highlighted Essex's capacity to adapt from propeller aircraft to jet-powered planes, positioning her as a cutting-edge naval asset. Following her service in the Korean War, the Essex's mission profile evolved further. In 1960, she was reclassified as an anti-submarine warfare support carrier, CVS, reflecting the growing submarine threat posed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. She operated mainly in the Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea, participating in NATO exercises and strengthening alliances through joint naval operations. Her role included conducting ASW patrols, training exercises, and ensuring the security of vital sea lanes, crucial to Western defense strategies. One of the most critical moments during her second career was during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. The Essex took part in the naval quarantine, essentially a blockade of Cuba, aimed at preventing Soviet nuclear missile shipments from reaching Cuban shores. Her presence was a powerful deterrent during this tense standoff, underscoring the critical role carriers played as instruments of political and military pressure without the need to escalate to open combat. Essex's ability to rapidly project power and maintain air superiority was crucial in maintaining a fragile peace during one of the Cold War's most dangerous moments. In addition to combat preparedness, the Essex also supported peacetime operations that illustrated the broadening use of aircraft carriers in the mid-20th century. In 1968, she was the prime recovery ship for the Apollo 7 space mission, a testament to her versatility and the trust placed in her crew's ability to conduct complex, high-stakes operations. Participating in space mission recoveries symbolized the expanding role of carriers as multi-purpose platforms in an era stretching beyond traditional warfare into scientific exploration and international prestige. Despite her robust service record and modernization, the Essex's physical design began to show its age amid the technological leaps of the jet and missile era. The United States Navy's introduction of nuclear-powered supercarriers and more advanced missile systems meant that older carriers like the Essex, reliant on conventional power plants and designed for earlier generations of aircraft, were increasingly less viable for frontline service. Budgetary constraints and changing naval doctrine eventually led to her being retired from active service. On June 30th, 1969, USS Essex was decommissioned for the final time at the Boston Navy Yard. Her name was officially struck from the Naval Vessel Register on June 1st, 1973, marking the end of her official naval career. Sold for scrap in 1975, the dismantling of Essex closed the physical chapter of a ship that had once symbolized American might across 2 decades of conflict and geopolitical tension. Though dismantled, the legacy of Essex lives on in the ships and sailors that followed. She earned 13 battle stars during World War II and 4 during the Korean War, accompanied by prestigious awards such as the Presidential Unit Citation and the Navy Unit Commendation. These honors recognize the bravery, service, and strategic importance that the vessel and her crew demonstrated. Throughout her operational life, the Essex-class carriers paved the way for the contemporary supercarriers that became the backbone of the U.S. Navy's global reach. The lessons learned in Essex's combat deployments, her operational innovations, and adaptability to new roles influenced carrier design, naval strategy, and military aviation for decades. Her story is a telling example of technology and human spirit, converging to redefine naval warfare and power. Projection. The decommissioning of USS Essex symbolized not just the end of a ship, but the close of an era in naval history. Her steel may have been recycled, but her impact remains etched in naval traditions, tactics, and the collective memory of those who served under her decks. The Essex's presence during critical moments of the 20th century, from the firestorms over the Pacific to the icy waters of the Atlantic and the Cuban standoff, framed a narrative of resilience and excellence. In her final years, Essex embodied the history she had witnessed while adapting to new realities. This balance of honoring tradition and embracing change is the clearest testament to her legacy. A ship built for war, yet capable of peacekeeping and space-age missions, forever a symbol of American naval innovation and strength. Thus, as the Essex's flag was lowered for the last time, it wasn't simply the end of a vessel, but the torch-passing of a naval tradition that continues to shape the global order and the technology that powers it. The story of Essex is timeless, reminding us that the might of a nation's fleet is not just anchored in steel, but also in the courage, vision, and adaptability of those who serve aboard her. The USS Essex CV-9 may no longer dominate the ocean waves, but her legacy echoes powerfully into the present day. As of 2025, the ship itself was long since retired, decommissioned permanently in 1969, and sold for scrap in 1975. Yet, Essex remains not just a memory but a symbol, a beacon of American naval innovation, resilience and power projection that continues to inspire naval strategists. Historians and veterans alike, this final chapter explores how Essex's memory lives on, her imprint indelibly stamped in the annals of military history and within the hearts of those who honor her legacy. Though she no longer floats across turbulent seas, USS Essex lives on in museums, historical commemorations, and through the stories passed down by the sailors and aviators who called her home. Her role as the lead ship of one of the most important classes of aircraft carriers in U.S. Navy history ensures she remains a foundational model for understanding the evolution of naval aviation and combined arms warfare. Her steel may have been dismantled, but the ideals and advancements she represented continue to shape the modern Navy. In today's naval doctrine, Essex's impact is evident. The lessons learned from her service hastened the development of larger, more versatile supercarriers and reshaped how sea power was conceived and exercised. Modern carriers, with their nuclear propulsion, angled flight decks, and catapult systems, stand as technological descendants of Essex's pioneering legacy. They embody the strategic principle that control of the air over the ocean equates to dominance of the seas, a doctrine Essex proved with thunderous clarity during her years operating across multiple global conflicts. Veterans, associations, and historical societies ensure that Essex's story is preserved and told accurately, celebrating both her technological prowess and the human element of her history. Reunion events and naval history conferences often recount tales of Essex's near-mythical feats, from surviving kamikaze strikes to launching endless waves of aircraft in pivotal battles. These personal testimonials bring Essex back to life, capturing the harsh realities and exhilarating heroism experienced aboard her decks. Essex's role in supporting technological milestones, such as the Apollo 7 space mission recovery, also links naval history with broader human achievement. This highlights how military assets can serve as platforms for peace and scientific advancement, broadening Essex's legacy beyond combat and into the realms of exploration and cooperation. Such milestones underscore the multi-purpose nature of carriers, which balance war readiness with the ability to aid in emergencies, rescue missions, and international diplomacy. Further cementing her memory, Essex has been featured in documentaries, books, and digital archives that offer detailed accounts of her construction, engagements, and adaptations. Such media ensure that new generations can appreciate Essex not only as a machine of war, but as a dynamic actor in the complex international drama of the 20th century. Through these narratives, Essex is recognized for both her technical mastery and the sacrifices of her crew, whose lives were bound to steel and sky. Military museums, particularly the United States Naval Aviation Museum and other important aviation and maritime heritage sites, display artifacts and exhibits honoring Essex-class carriers. Models, pictures, and recovered memorabilia provide tangible connections to the ship's storied past. These exhibitions contextualize her significance, both in wartime innovation and in the Cold War balance of power, emphasizing the enduring relevance of naval aviation history. In contemporary naval education, Essex's campaigns and design changes are studied to understand the dynamics of carrier warfare, fleet composition, and carrier air group operations. Officers and scholars examine how Essex adapted older naval doctrines to emerging threats, setting precedents that remain applicable to carrier strike groups operating in the 21st century. This educational legacy ensures that the ship's past contributes directly to current and future maritime strategy. The cultural and technological influences of USS Essex also extend internationally. Allied navies modeled their carrier strategies and ship designs on lessons drawn from Essex's successes. Her demonstration of effective carrier task force operations and landing techniques informed improvements worldwide, making her a global symbol of carrier excellence. This cross-pollination of ideas enhanced collective security and established standards that endure in the NATO alliance and beyond. Ultimately, the USS Essex occupies a special place in history as a vessel that represented transition between the battleship era to carrier dominance, propeller to jet propulsion, and global war to Cold War deterrence. Her career spanned pivotal moments that defined the modern naval age. Though scrapped physically, Essex remains a colossal force in the sea of history, her spirit alive in every role of the modern carrier, every launch and recovery of aircraft, and every strategy forged in the shadow of her towering flight deck. As navies around the world prepare for future conflicts and challenges, the lessons and legacy of Essex continue to shape thinking and innovation. Her story is a powerful reminder that technological superiority fused with human courage can rewrite the rules of warfare and safeguard the principles of freedom and peace. In remembering Essex, we honor not just a ship, but a monumental chapter of human endeavor on the vast, untamable ocean. If you've stood with us through the thunder of history, you know there's always more beneath the surface. Hit subscribe now and ring the bell, because every story of war, courage, and consequence deserves to be told. Join our ranks, dive deep into the untold battles, and become part of the mission to remember. Your next chapter starts here.